This next section describes Molly's attendance at the Peace Convention, some of the things she heard and the sights that she saw that lead to a sense of depression and despair as she gets ready to leave the convention, and also leads to her decision that when she returns to the United States, she's going to direct her efforts more toward sending relief to the casualties from the war that is already causing so much death and destruction across Europe. And she gets some first-hand knowledge of that while she is at the convention. The horror of the war came alive as one delegate after another began to speak, in fact plead with the audience to do something to stop the intolerable suffering. The once wide and fertile plains of Belgium were now nothing more than a bloody battlefield. Starving women and children roamed the plains, boiling grass to ease the pain of starvation. The Italians were not at war, but already they were starving. The German delegation said, "There will be no Bavarians left if this war continues." There were no men at all left at home in Hungary. Even the Boy Scouts were in the trenches. Perhaps the most stirring talk was given by Frau Hofrath von Lecker of Austria. She had been an upper-class housewife turned nurse in a hospital for the wounded. Although she had been charged with their care, she had no supplies to tend to them, no food, no dressings for their wounds. She asked the soldiers, "What are you fighting for?" They replied, "We do not know. We were told to fight." When she told them of the peace conference, they had begged her to implore the nations of the earth to make peace in the names of their wives and children. Everyone in the audience was moved to tears by the Frau's eloquent plea. "I am not a strong and militant woman. All my life, like most of the women whom I know, I've been dependent on my men. But I have seen our men dependent on us weak ones. I have seen their strength wrecked. What are we women of Europe to do? We cannot live without our men. So we dependent women for whom I speak must join ourselves to you strong women and protest against a civilization that under the pretension of protecting us takes our men from us. So I have come here to cry out, give us back our men." The next day, after the public meetings are over, Molly and John take a short bike trip to the border between Belgium and the Netherlands, and they visit a refugee camp, and they see firsthand the suffering that is going on there. And so on the return trip from the convention to their home in New York, Molly makes a decision that at the end, that when she returns to New York, she's going to set up an organization to get medical supplies and relief to the people who are suffering. And as they come back from the convention, they read the proposals that were written at the convention. And these proposals were going to be carried by a small delegation of American women, including Jane Addams, to all of the leaders of the countries in Europe that were at war, to try to get them to do something to come back to the bargaining table to end the war. The proposals from the conference were that no territory should be transferred without the consent of the men and women in it, and that the right of conquest should not be recognized. That autonomy and a democratic parliament should not be refused to any people. That the governments of all nations should come to an agreement to refer future international dispute to arbitration or conciliation, and to bring social, moral, and economic pressure to bear upon any country which resorts to arms. That foreign politics should be subject to democratic control. that women should be granted equal rights to men. On April 28, 1915, Molly writes a letter to her cousin. Dear Prudence, Ms. Adams and others will be calling on the leaders in all the capitals of the countries at war. They hope to present the resolution to these leaders and convince them all that their citizens desire an end to this war. Oh, Prudence, the suffering is so great. I have never seen or heard the likes of it. If this war doesn't end, then I'm afraid entire generations of Europeans and their cultures will cease to exist. It is urgent that we act to help alleviate the suffering, whether or not Miss Adams is successful in her endeavors. Molly arrives back from the convention at the beginning of May in 1915. The next day, she goes and picks up her morning newspaper and reads the following headline: The Lusitania attacked by German U-boats. 148 American lives lost.